Today I am going to teach the lesson direct and inverse variation. Let us understand first what is the meaning of the variation. So variation is when a change in one variable leads to a change in another variable, then we say that these two variables are in proportion or in variation. So here let us understand variation with few examples. So suppose there are two variables, number of items and its cost. So if we are purchasing two items for cost rupees 20, now if the number of items are changed to 8, then cost will increase to 80. If number of items are reduced to 4, cost is also reduced to 40. So changes made in number of items leads to the change in its cost. Another example is speed and time. Suppose we are going to cover a fixed distance, or if the distance is constant, and if we are traveling with a speed of 60 km per hour, then it will take 2 hours to reach the destination. Now, if the speed is reduced to 40 km per hour, then we will require 3 hours to reach the destination. So, changes in the speed leads to the changes in the time. So, in this way, we can see that here number of items and its cost, or speed and time, these variables are in variation. So, variation means the change in one variable leads to the change in another variable. Now, there are two types of variations. One is direct variation and another one is inverse variation. Okay. So suppose if there are two quantities x and y. In direct variation, when x increases, y also increases, or when x decreases, y also decreases. So both x and y are changing in one direction. So in that case, we can say that these two variables, x and y, are in direct variation. And in inverse variation, when x increases, y decreases, or when x decreases, y increases. That means they change in opposite direction. Then we say that x and y vary inversely. Here x varies directly. In direct variation, x upon y is constant, so ratio is constant. In case of inverse variation, product of the two quantities is constant. And this k is known as what? Constant of variation. Let us understand this with few more examples. Like we have seen, number of items and its cost. Similarly, suppose if there are 4 members in the family and they require 2 liters of milk, and if another family is there with 6 members, then they will require obviously more liters of milk. So here we can see that when number of members in the family increases, then the quantity of the milk required is also increases. That means this is the example of direct variation. And as we have seen in direct variation, ratio is constant. So let us find out ratio of the number of members with the quantity of the milk. So here 4 upon 2, ratio is 2 is to 1. Similarly 6 upon 3, ratio is 2 is to 1. So this is the example of direct variation. Another example can be given here. Suppose if speed is constant, we are traveling with a constant speed of 60 km per hour and we are going somewhere, time and distance. So with the constant speed, if we are traveling for 4 hours, we are traveling for 2 hours, we will cover the distance 120 kilometers. Now if we travel for some more time, like for 2 hours, then we will cover distance 240 kilometers. So as the time increase, distance covered is also increased when speed is constant. Then in that case, we can say that time and distance are in direct variation. The reason is here distance upon time is equal to speed. And as now speed is kept constant, so distance upon time, that means ratio is constant. So here distance and time, these two are the variables which are in direct variation. Now let us understand few examples of inverse variation. So in inverse variation, first example is, suppose if one project is given to the students and 16 students are working on that project, then they require 30 days to complete the project. So here that project or work is constant, work is same. Now instead of 16, now 20 students if they are working on the same project, so now number of students are increased. More students are working on that project. In that case, they will require less number of days to complete the task. So here we can see that when the number of students are increased, then the days required is reduced. So here this is the example of inverse variation. Now as we have seen inverse variation, product is constant. So let us see 16 into 30, product is 480, and 20 into 24, product is 480. So here product is constant. So therefore this is the example of inverse variation. Another example can be given, like here now this time distance is constant. Let us say 240 kilometer distance we are covering. Now if we are moving with a speed of 40 kilometer per hour, then time required will be 6 hours. Now if the speed is increased to 60 kilometer per hour, then time required will be 4 hours, because now speed is increased. So we will require less time to reach the destination. So here, as we have seen, as we know, speed into time is equal to distance. So here distance is constant, so product is here constant. So therefore, this is the example of inverse variation. Now let us have few more examples. Suppose if we have x, y values. When x is 5, y is 10, x is 10, y is 20, x is 15, y is 30. Another example, x is 90, y is 4, x is 60, y is 6, and x is 120, y is 2. Okay. Now here, x is to y, ratio is constant or product is constant. Let us check. So x is to y is 5 is to 10, which is half. 10 is to 20, which is also half. 15 is to 30, which is also half. So everywhere, as we have seen, ratio is constant. So therefore, in this case here, x and y vary directly. So x vary directly with y. Now here, let us see whether ratio is constant or no. So 90 is to 4, ratio is 45 is to 2. 60 is to 6, ratio is 10 is to 1. So ratio is not constant, so x is not varying directly with y. Now let us find out product. 90 into 4 is 360. 60 into 6 is also 360. But 120 into 2 is 240. That means x and y do not vary inversely as well in this case. But instead of this 2, if we make it now 3, okay, then let us check what product we will have. So 120 into 3, 360. Now here we can say that x varies inversely with y. So here x into y is constant. I hope with these examples it is clear about direct and inverse variation. Thank you.